They are token based. That is my only complaint. Like, what a load of horse. Like trying to use agentic like interactions and keep track of some level of tokens. They do some weird math because you're getting both billed for tokens and total amount of tasks. So like monthly, I can only do 60 tasks at their top tier.
Send prompts, not nudes. I just want to AI some shit.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to episode, I don't even know. The screen here says 22, but I think we had a couple more with weird version numbers.
I thought it said 22, like 10 episodes
we
ago.
number podcasts like OpenAI names models. Really clearly. But happy to be back.
Oh, God.
With
That
me,
was pretty good.
as always, is AI overlord himself, John Petty, co-founder and collaborator. James is still abroad, sharing our secrets, foreign nationals. I'm just kidding.
He's a spy.
Or am I? John, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm in it. You know that the 4-month sleep regression is real. Babies get, and I'm looking forward to some late night fun that isn't AI involved.
Yeah.
But I've got my Twitter loaded up with my AI influencers to follow and rage at. I've got Codex running on my ChatGPT app, doing some stuff, and yeah, get into it. Lots to catch up on.
So, what are your thoughts on Codex?
I love the mobile interface. I mean, it's just like in a world where you can talk to your code. Of course, you need a tool that like works on your phone. I have been a big fan of like the GitHub mobile app as long as I've been doing this, and Codex works very nicely with it. I can kind of go back and forth between the two, and if I know what I'm doing, it's a very powerful tool. As I get further into the Vibe frontier, I get a little less comfortable with it because I just don't have the technical knowledge, or I can't on a phone put the entire picture together to really understand what it's doing. But that's fine because then I can start a bunch of things and finish them up later, later at my desktop. But I think it's pretty cool.
I will say the one thing I do like about Codex, it's good for information and context. It's great for mobile. I would say like from a mobile device perspective, I do like it because I don't have to have a computer. I don't have to have like a large coding infrastructure set up and all that kind of crap going on. And the only thing I don't like about it is a little bit of a pain in the ass to set up. Like if you're doing small applications or applets, I guess maybe is the better term, it's great. But as soon as you start dealing with like large configurations, significant packages, large configurations or infrastructure, it really shows like it'll still give you good information if you're asking questions, but it will absolutely make your life hell trying to get it to work.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm maybe enjoying it so much now, because I'm using a smaller code base. So I'm actually working on a different project with it than our big our web app, and it seems to be doing good things. But I'll keep you posted on that. Lots of other things, in the mix. Got Claude Code, Windsurf. Did we talk about Windsurf? Probably.
I feel like Windsurf did one thing. They made it a little more approachable, I guess, for the average Joe to create semi-agentic structure. I look at Windsurf as like a dumb or a dumbed down version of prompt flow. Like,
yeah,
personally, but I know you're not a fan of prompt flow, and it's we moved past it very quickly from just a capability perspective. But like, I don't know. I think the Windsurf acquisition was part customer base, part like we need to be able to do something that actually is more complex than a chatbot.
Yeah. Well, I think what's interesting, with the acquisition and then, the termination of access to Claude, which is what was powering most Windsurf workflows. I think it's raising a lot of attention kind of in the business and kind of strategy space of like what is going to happen with these if Cursor is a 9 billion plus, the dollar valuated business and one of the fastest growing SaaS of all time, and Cursor sits on top of Anthropic, what happens if Anthropic doesn't, want to send their AI completions to Cursor?
Man, actually, you just brought up a great point, because that's exactly what happened to, oh man, who was it?
Windsurf.
It was Windsurf.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's somebody else also that like was in the news. They said that OpenAI called them and was like, go essentially,
Oh,
and like totally cut their APIs like same day. Didn't even give them 24 hours notice.
yeah.
But like, what's interesting is, I think if you set up the right infrastructure, meaning like you're part of AWS, Google, or Azure, if you're doing the right investment and getting like regions and setting all that up, they're less of a threat because you can pivot, right? And you have other ways to leverage if you're using direct API calls. But the other thing that's interesting about that is there is a lot of original, let's go back 2 years ago, and VCs essentially like laughing at people and telling them they wouldn't fund their because, oh my God, you're a wrapper for ChatGPT. And of course, Perplexity's CEO came out and was like, everybody's a wrapper unless you're the originating source of like dirt or rock
Unless
or
you're
diamonds or whatever which is funny. But you're looking at these massive, massive acquisitions, not small. Like 6.5 billion is absolutely ridiculous for as long as that organization has been around. What was it? The one by Meta that just came around, Johnny Ives. I hate even bringing up that name,
We
but
weren't
like
even going to talk about that.
I know, but that company like hasn't been around that long. And then Scale AI, 14.3 billion. Like seriously,
Well, Scale's different.
Scale's different. They've been around longer, but
yeah.
Still, like,
but that that's also like that's like I think related because Scale is so instrumental into the AI supply chain, right? Like, you think about it, like the mining or the petroleum, refining process, right? Like, Scale was doing a lot of the labeling and data ingestion into these massive pipelines that produce these next generation models, and so access to that may or may not be important anymore, but it was certainly important to get us here.
Well, but I mean, like, the capability of models and the price point makes them so accessible. It doesn't even make sense to go out and spend $100 million building a premier model. Like,
No.
like the only
unless this is going to happen to you, right? Like, and you're worried about.
You don't have to though. Like, think it like right now, if we got cut off from Anthropic or OpenAI, would it matter to us?
For our use case, no.
Yeah, but that's also, we build probably a little bit different than most most startups. I will say that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, that's kind of AI right now, in my opinion. Like that was one of the first things that I started doing when we got our Azure infrastructure. I started grabbing shit up and deploying everything I possibly could, because it's that whole utilization. The more you use, the more they give you, and they start taking things away, which they're in that mode right now, especially with OpenAI, because like they couldn't even deploy 4.1. 4.1 just got into the like regular ChatGPT for pro users like this week or last week. Last week. It wasn't even in there. You couldn't even use it because they didn't have enough compute to convert it.
Feels like it's been
I know, it feels like a month.
But yeah, no, that's a really good point. And yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. There's some research that I'm just starting to dig into. I haven't really digested fully, so I have to talk about this next week. But the argument is being made by some who I think are affiliated with OpenAI. So consider the source too. That one really well trained supermodel will do better than niche models or niche data. And that a lot of it's hypothetical. A lot of it, I think, is a bit self-serving. But I think this is what's at stake: is that if you believe that to be true, then you want to preserve access to that supermodel or have a partner who's producing a supermodel at all costs. I don't particularly think that's true, but I think that's driving a lot of the decision making right now.
Yeah, so I think if I'm gonna call, that would be the point that I would call, and only because the gap, I think we talked about this a couple of podcasts ago, the gap is closing. Like, you can be OpenAI unless you have AGI. Like, okay, great. So what? Your premier models are being distilled by, it doesn't matter. They're going to be, period. End of story. Like, you should expect, if you're putting models out there, that people are going to use the data that it's outputting for model distillation. If that means the trickle down effect is going to take smaller and smaller models to create bigger and better models that compete with like your premier models, that gap's going to keep closing. And like Minimax is probably the best example of this. Like, they released that completely open source, and it currently is like, just, I mean, it wrecks R1, and it's an open weighted model, and at 80 bill. So like, that alone is a really good example of like, it's brand new, it's out, and open source is the way they decided to go, because they went platform, and they're offering a platform that competes directly with Manus. It's decent. I feel like Manus has a much more mature development around the UI, but I think that Minimax actually does better adaptive thought and like deeper thought, at least what I've been playing with, and that's in beta right now. And I have to say,
I
like,
haven't tried that yet. That sounds fun.
let me see if I can get you a code. I don't even think you have to get a code, but I think I can get some extra tokens if you do. They are token based. That is my only complaint. Like, what a load of horse. Like, trying to use agentic like interactions and keep track of some level of tokens. They do some weird math because you're getting both billed for tokens and total amount of tasks. So like, monthly, I can only do 60 tasks at their top tier. Now, I mean, that's a good amount of tasks, 2 tasks a day, depending on how impactful, but you know how I operate. I'm going to go through 60 tasks in like 3 days. So I'm not a huge fan of that. But I have to say, for somebody coming out and going toe to toe with Manus right out the gate, their model definitely shines. Like, you can tell that their model is very different from OpenAI. It's very different from Claude. I've started to get it to like influence and learn, and actually like adapt. So it's pretty cool. I will give them thumbs up for, if you're going to use something, I would recommend it. And the best part is you can go to their GitHub and play. That's actually what I was doing earlier. I was playing around with their model and like trying to see how, like, what different ways I could deploy it. And it's on Hugging Face too, so it's pretty cool. But I don't think the premier model mentality, until we hit that AI that is like touching everything, doesn't need multiple instructions, figures it out on the fly, goes and executes flawlessly. Like, even if it's not flawlessly, 60-70% is going to be great, but it's going to be complex tasks. Like, hey, go sit, be a SOC analyst, monitor the SOC, and identify, threats, triage them, apply threat reduction, and do that for 8 hours. Go. Right? Like, until you can start doing like that level of people replacement tasks for AI, which I surprisingly, I don't think we're far off. It's going to be hard to say one model to rule them all, because I think that's the one fallacy that everybody isn't realizing. Like, everybody's not really calling out LLMs. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that's what, there's a disconnect between, investors and people making these kind of bold economic predictions, and people who are selling a model, versus practitioners, right? Like, I think the SOC solution that you're describing will be available in a 12 to 24 months, if not already, based on wrappers, right? Many loops of many models doing many things, orchestrated together in a way that gets the job done well enough to start, seriously thinking about cost takeout. That is good enough and is tapping into the latent capability of the existing generation of models, or most likely is built on the last generation, being like last month. But still, like, when that catches up to where the state of the art of model is today, that will still be really, really good as a wrapper, or as an orchestration, as an agent, whatever you want to call it. Meanwhile, there's a super model that people are dumping money and burning tons and tons of GPU time to try to find. And that's the bet.
From whiskey pours to AI wars, thanks for tuning in. Stay curious, stay questioning, and we'll catch you in the next episode.